possibly a retired industrialist, that's one way to put it. An ex-multi-millionaire, which I go in and say, oh, ex? So what validates my presence here today? I can perhaps explain it by saying that the story really started a couple of months or so before I received this document. This is a genuine court stamp on this occasion. It's got DLA Piper, a big firm of solicitors, stamp on it. 15th of September 2003. It's a claim against me personally from a bank called GMAC Commercial Finance, which was originally General Motors Acceptance Corporation, an American invoice discounter and provider of finance by way of mortgages and loans for industrial companies mostly. And they were at the time my group's principal funder, banker. I had others with Barclays and with Lloyd's TSB. I had 11 companies with about 650 employees in 10 factories. Sizable turnover, like 70 million or something. And we were very big in steel and engineering, mostly in the Midlands, but some around in Telford and in Doncaster and elsewhere. Very prosperous business. In the year in question, we were, in spite of paying loads of interest on short-term loans, which we had to, it was the only way we could run our business, because there was then, like now, no proper access to funds for SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. Anyway, I got the wrong side of a firm of accountants called Deloitte's. I bought a couple of companies off them. I used to buy companies out of administration if they were synergist with my group, which was a steel-based group. And I'd accused them of being corrupt a couple of years earlier when I went to buy a business off them, and they shut me out and were going to sell it to one of their audit clients. So I took them on, and eventually did buy it, but of course I'd made an enemy. And so in early '03, they came looking for me because GMAC wanted to have a health check carried out on us. It's what they call a collateral review. So 15 Deloitte people come into my whole group of companies, and immediately I know that I'm going to be pulled down. So over the next few months, they rubbished all our forecasts, got valuers in to undervalue everything significantly, and put a gun to my head on the Friday the 13th of June '03, and it's either appoint us administrators today or it's full receivership tomorrow. And so we don't really think that full receivership is the right way. If you work with us, you can come out the other side with a bit smaller business, but there is life on the other side. So with a gun to my head, because they had shut off the supply of all the cash flow to pay wages, and what do you do? 600 people want their wages. You've not got many decisions. There's only one way to go in those circumstances. And this followed on the receiving the administration of the group of David Fabb Holdings Limited. If you want to Google me, you'll see quite a lot of information on Google. And this is a claim from GMAC. This is a formality, but it's a claim for £9.972,999.21.
The good news is the wait while tomorrow.
Peanuts, really. The company was worth a great deal more than that. That was the amount which my group owed GMAC, particularly. We had some lesser debt to others. We had 70 acres of properties, warehouses and factories and offices and so on. And a lot of it was earmarked for potential redevelopment, and it now is being developed massively. But anyway, they pulled me down, and I then kept one of the companies, which was the only one which wasn't a freehold. It was a high-tech leasehold premises just off the motorway at Junction 10, a high-tech metal basher, making all kinds of sophisticated products. I'd kept that out of the administration by agreement. They threw me a bone, in other words, you'll need something to do. In the next few years, I developed that into 5 companies, another group growing, and I'd mortgaged my house, remortgaged it to put 600k into that enterprise, and that was going quite well. But I'd been, in the meantime, of course, banging the drum and crying blue murder about the corruption in Deloitte's, about how they had pulled down my first very successful business, which in the year in question had made about 880,000 quid after paying loads of interest. So it's a viable business, and it was what's called an oligopoly. It's got a unique production facility which is still running in the Midlands. So after I don't know where, I only found this the other day. It was in some papers I was going through. Should have framed it and put it in the toilet, really, shouldn't I? Along with the odd Concord certificate I've got. But so I've been fighting them ever since, and they, out of the blue, in December 23rd, 05, by which time I got my new group expanded to 5 companies, going very well, but nothing like the size of the first one, which would take me 40 odd years to build up. They issued out of the blue allegations, which were totally unfounded, that I had converted, you've heard that word earlier today, which means stolen, all the contents of this high-tech metal fashion company called CK Engineering. None of it was true, but they sent it out in a report to creditors and to others. So Barclays, our then banker, were briefed about it over a breakfast meeting, I discovered. And so that had the effect of stopping me in my tracks of growing that business. And in the March of 06, that group was put into administration with a firm of receivers appointed by, insisted upon by Barclays, called Vantis. Vantis spectacularly went broke themselves in 2010 after they had sold the assets of that group under the hammer in July 2006. And they had by that time about $250,000 in fees. And that business, which was, as I say, going well, was heavily invested. I put about $1 million into it with a remortgaged home. But then that meant that I had lost my job in CKE, and so then the family home went in well, after the writs were issued against me and CK and my only daughter in December 05, we struggled on till March 06. We had to put that into administration because Barclays insisted on it in 06. The assets were sold in July 06, and then I was then running out of money, and I was paying a hefty mortgage on a lovely big house. So then there was then a process in which I was put for, which led ultimately to a 9-day trial in September 08. So they issued these allegations in December 06. It took about over 2 years for it to come to court. They had claimed that the assets that I had stolen were worth over $1.5 million, that I hadn't paid a rent on it. There was never any rental agreement. They didn't inquire about any problem with it in the intervening 2.5 years from the administration of the first group. However, we eventually had a trial, a whole week in Liverpool High Court, with a very senior judge, part heard trial, then another 4 days in the Royal Court of Justice in December. Of that year we represented ourselves. They were eventually awarded on the claim that I'd stolen all the equipment, on perjured evidence of a few bits and pieces of fixtures and fittings. They were awarded £35,000, which they then told the world they'd won the case and there was a cost order made in their favour. Well, there wasn't really. The judge said that he would award me my costs in respect of the repleaded or abandoned claim, so they succeeded only on 2.5% of the original claim. But of course it was just enough for them to blackguard me and to then provide, they issued a statutory demand for that sum and another sum of my director's loan account, which they claimed was in arrears by about 80,000. They got a judgment on that for 52 grand. Independent forensic accountants I got later said that on the contrary, the company owed me over 100,000 quid on that matter, but they got what they wanted. They used very expensive barristers and lawyers who were paid between them close to 2 million. By that time, Deloitte had about 5 million. Every bank had been paid in full with big exit penalties. And the main core steel business was then sold by the property people who bought the whole of the property assets and some of the companies which they did not. They liquidated some of the companies and had some of the present, my old management team run the others. And then they, in 2010, they sold the core business, steel processing company, to SR Steel in Mumbai for $100 million. So I carried on with the issues that I had overhanging, but they got a bankruptcy petition against me in July 09. And as you've heard today, the petition was not signed. There was no. It was entirely defective, but they got railroaded through into bankruptcy, which meant that I had no locus standi in law to take any action against them, and that was what it was all about. And this resonates with the Lawrence Tomlinson report. Lawrence Tomlinson is a self-made millionaire with care homes and genetic cars and other things that he spread north of Leeds, and David Pidcock and I went to see him and had lunch with him at his invitation last July, and the information that we imparted to him was it chimed with all the other cases which he put in the Tomlinson report, which was not particularly about my sort of situation, but it was similar in that it focused on the practice of RBS to find asset-rich companies and force them over the cliff to grab the assets. Yeah. And that's still an ongoing situation, although there's no appetite on the part of the government to do anything about these situations. And whenever I go to see an MP or anybody else, they say, well, it's all been tested in the courts, David, and the ICAAW, the regulator, is the one who looks into wrongdoings on the part of accountants. Well, it's a total joke, okay, because it's self-regulation. And they depend on the Deloittes of this world for all their fee income. And so, but anyway, it's left me with a taste for, and it's still going on. I won't tell you what I'm currently engaged in, but the main thing is that I reverse the bankruptcy petition, because if I do that, and I ought to, because the judgment, when I applied for having it set aside, the judgment was entirely flawed, and the judge in that case was really reading out a judgment prepared by the other side's barrister. So in the course of all this, I started networking with people, and Mr. Ebert had become a very good friend, and we were helping each other, and of course he's very lonely out there at times. So we've developed a strong network of people who are self-taught lawyers, but we've got different areas of expertise because of our particular circumstances. And while my focus is on false bankruptcies and false receiverships and liquidations, it's widened out to have involvement with Guy and Ebert and David Pidcock and others into pro bono work, where people have been evicted from their homes and generally suffering at the hands of the criminals that you've heard so much about today. So I had 2 companies left, and I bought these 2 companies in off an accountant in 2003. They were called January Sun and January Moon, but there was a debenture between them. It's a valuable asset because it gives you, if you're running a sizable company, it's helpful to have a top company and a bottom company and a debenture between the 2 of them. So I had intended to, I did rename them Alpa Industrial. That was going to be the new holding company of the second group. And the second company, January Moon, I renamed Alpa Security Products because we were making loads of high-tech safes and cash point type machines for banks and building societies in that second group of companies. So anyway, I kept those 2 companies paid up in Companies House, and I've been paying the fees, which aren't much, to keep them as dormant companies, but as potential vehicles to do something else with. And so I decided about 6 months ago that it would be a good idea, give me something to do and refocus, if I renamed Alpa Security Products Alpa Forensics. Now, I come at it a bit late in life, but it was quite clear to me that with the networking and with the enthusiasm to help each other that there is in the group, we can achieve a great deal. And what I would like to do is to see this business grow into a structure which can stand on its own 2 feet. At the moment I'm subsidising it, and it's in quite a small way, but the letterheads, this is not an exclusive list of things that we want to look at, but we're looking at, it says we're shining the light on false documents, property theft, abuse of process, complicit trustees, corrupt solicitors, judicial failure, police participation, direct action strategies, dispute resolution, and political failure. Because there is that big element which we've got eventually to influence. We've got to get people in Parliament prepared to say, as they did with Lawrence Tomlinson, who came out with this report, it was publicised everywhere. It was on all the media, it was in all the papers, and they're well on the way to kicking it in the long grass now, I fear. But all the MPs, including mine, who's on the Treasury Select Committee, an idiot called Mark Garnier, who himself is an ex-banker, they have known about a lot of these criminal activities in and out of the courts, but they have done bugger all about it. With 1 or 2 very exceptions. John Hemming, for one, is one of the people. Then, you know, he's 1 in 500, and he can really do nothing on his own, as we can do nothing on our own. So we will be taking this business forward, and we'll be looking for ways in which we can link with other people with skills and resources, so that when we hear of cases, it's like the disgraceful case of Grace McCursker, who's been kicked out of her own home 3 times in the last 3 months, absolutely disgraceful. And Paula, who I've never met, I've only met Grace like fleetingly 4 years ago, but we're helping her, and Paula, who's got a what is it? It's a wildlife reserve, isn't it? Animal sanctuary in Durham, another fraudulent eviction. And of course I've been in the courts and I've heard everything the guys told you was absolutely true, and I'm very impressed with the way he and Linda and everybody else around has been weighing in to take on the system. And I think that we mustn't be overconfident, but I think we're sort of getting somewhere. Yeah. And main thing is to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.